In this video, we will talk about a drama. We will explain the storyline, give a short summary of the plot, and introduce the cast and the characters. We will also discuss the movie production detail and box office performance. Finally, we will share reviews and our personal reactions. So let's get started. When a long running franchise returns, the most interesting question is rarely what happened next. The most meaningful question is how it chooses to speak this time. Spartacus House of Ashur 2025 is worth discussing precisely because of how deliberately it positions itself within a familiar legacy while quietly shifting the conversation through genre, direction, and production style. From a genre perspective, this project sits at an interesting intersection that television and film do not often explore with passion. On the surface, it clearly belongs to the historical action drama space, an arena defined by physicality, heightened emotion, and stylized violence. But beneath that, the genre influence leans strongly toward political drama. This blend matters. Instead of relying purely on spectacle, the genre framework invites discussion about power, structure, image making, and the mechanics of authority that alone make it a compelling subject for our viewers because it suggests a maturity in intent rather than a simple continuation of familiar thrill. The Spartacus franchise has always been visually aggressive, and this installment does not shy away from that identity. However, the genre emphasizes here feel more control, more deliberate violence, and intensity are not rated as constant peaks but as texture within a broader dramatic rhythm. This is not an important evolution, especially in an era where audiences are increasingly sensitive to repetition and excess. The genre is doing quieter work now, and that shift is worth unpacking. Direction play a crucial role in this transition. The creative leadership behind the project understand that returning to a known world requires restraint as much as confidence. The directing style favored atmosphere over momentum. Shots linger longer. Spaces feel heavier, silence carry as much weight as action. This approach signals that the director is less interested in rushing the audience forward and more interested in letting the environment speak for itself. What's not notable here is the trust placed in the audience. The direction assumes viewer can sit with discomfort, with ambiguity, and with slow building tension. That's not a universal approach in modern genre filmmaking, where pacing is often driven by algorithmic expectation. Choosing to slow things down, especially within a franchise known for intensity, is a creative risk, and that risk alone makes the film worth discussing. The production style reinforced this confidence visually. The project maintained the franchise signature look, heightened contrast, stylized blood, and carefully composed brutality, but there is also a noticeable refinement. The sets feel less like backdrop and more like enclosed system. Lightning is used to create an emotional pressure rather than just visual flair. Costume and environments communicate hierarchy, control, and decay without drawing attention to themselves. The production style feel intentional rather than indulgent. It's not trying to modernize for the sake of trend, nor is it trapped in nostalgia. Instead, treats the established aesthetic as a language, one that can be spoken more quietly, more precisely without losing its identity. Another reason this film is worth warming us to a discussion topic is timing. Audience today are deeply familiar with stories about power, corruption, and control. What set this project apart is its willingness to explore those ideas within a classical framework rather than a contemporary one. That contrast creates space for reflection. It allows viewer to examine modern anxieties through historical distance, which is often where the most interesting conversation happen. As a reviewer, this is the kind of film that invites patience. It does not demand immediate judgment. Instead, it asks for consideration of genre, evaluation of directorial confidence, and of production choice that favor mood over noise, whether one ultimately love or critique it. Spartacus movie earned its place in conservation simply by choosing to slow down, narrow its focus, and trust its craft. And sometimes that restraint is exactly what make a familiar world feel worth revisiting. Spartacus House of Ashur 2025 operate within a production scale that is typical of modern premium historical dramas, particularly those produced for cable or streaming platform rather than theatrical release. While no official budget figure have been publicly confirmed, industry analysis allow for reasonable estimate based on comparable production, shooting location, and technical requirement. Based on these factors, the overall production budget can be reasonably placed in the range of approximately 80 to 150 million dollars for a full season, assuming a standard episode count consistent with similar projects in this genre. This estimated cost reflects the inherent demand of period-based filmmaking. Historical drama requires substantial upfront investment because much of what appears on screen can't be forced from existing modern infrastructure. Sets must either be built from scratch or heavily modified, and filming locations often involve controlled environment, long-term lease, or remote logistics for a project set in the ancient world. These typically include arena-style spaces, residential compound, and institutional interior, all of which contribute to higher construction and maintenance costs compared to contemporary settings. A significant portion of the budget is allocated to physical production resources. This includes set construction, location management, and on site operation. Filming in countries that offer tax incentives can offset some expenses, but those savings are often balanced by transportation, housing, and logistical cost for cast and crew. Large scale production also require extended shooting schedule, which further increase expense related to equipment rental, labor, and daily operation. Costume and prop design represent another major budget category. Period authenticity requires specialized material, costume fabrication, custom fabrication, and extensive wardrobe inventories. Unlike modern production, where clothing can be sourced or adopted, historical project must design nearly every visible items. Props such as weapons, armor, and set decorations are also built to withstand repeated use, particularly in action heavy sequence, which raises both material and labor cost. Labor remain one of the largest single expenditure. This include compensation for actor, director, producer, writer, stunt performer, and technical crew. Historical action dramas typically require a higher than average number of specialists, including fight coordinator, stunt team, and safety supervisor. These rules add layer of cost that are not present in dialogue driven or contemporary dramas. Post production count for another substantial share of the budget. Editing, sound design, visual effect enhancement, and color grading are essential to maintaining visual continuity and scale. While this type of production relies less on large scale digital environment that fantasy heavy series, visual effects are still used to expand locations, increase crowd size, and refined action sequence. Original music composition and sound mixing further add to post production cost. When compared to similar historical or action oriented series, the estimated budget for this drama aligned with industry norms. It sits below the most expensive fantasy or science fiction franchise, which often exceed $200 million per season, but remains significantly higher than standard drama series. Compared to theoretical historical epics, the budget is distributed differently, prioritizing sustained quality across multiple episodes rather than concentrating resource into a single cinematic release. Overall, the production budget reflects a strategic balance rather than excess. Resources appear allocated toward maintaining consistent visual quality, physical authenticity, and technical reliability across the season. The financial structure suggests an emphasis on durability and long term production value rather than short term spectacle, positioning the project firmly within the premium historical drama category without pushing into the highest cost tier of modern television production. This is exists firmly within the historical action drama genre, but its identity is shaped as much by restraint as by intensity. Rather than functioning as a straightforward spectral driven production, it blends elements of political drama and psychological tension into a genre framework traditionally associated with scale and physical access. This combination gives the project a more reflective presence, positioning it closer to a prestige drama than a conventional action showcase. Atmospherically, the film aligns into heaviness. The environment feel enclosed, controlled, and deliberate, with visual spaces designed to communicate pressure rather than freedom. Lighting play a critical role in shaping this atmosphere. Shadows dominate many interior while exterior scenes are often filtered through muted or dusty palettes. This creates a sense of constant weight as if every space carries its own unspoken rules. The atmosphere is not designed to energize the viewers but to keep them alert and contemplative. The spacing reinforces this mood instead of rapid escalation, where the rhythm is measured and patient. Scenes are allowed to breathe with pauses and silence, given narrative importance even without overt action. This slower pacing does not suggest inactivity, rather, it creates tensions through anticipation. The viewer is encouraged to observe to notice shift in posture, tone, and environment. This approach aligns the project more closely with political thrills than with traditional historical action narratives. Tonally, the films maintain a serious and grounded register throughout. There is a title, tonal relief, and moment of levity, are rare or understated. The emotional tone is sober, leaning toward unease rather than triumph. Violence, when present, is framed as transactional and procedural rather than celebratory. This tonal choice strips away romanticism and places emphasis on consequence and control. It reflects a world view where power is maintained through system, not heroic. Stylistically, the production continued the visual language associated with the border franchise but with notable refinement. The use of stylized visual remain, including heightened contrast and deliberate framing, yet these elements are applied with more precision. Camera movement is often restrained, favoring steady composition over aggressive motion. When the camera does move, it tends to do so with intention, guiding attention rather than overwhelming it. Sound design contribute heavily to the overall mood. Music is used sparingly and often sit beneath scenes rather than driving them. Ambient sound, footsteps, distant echoes, and environmental noise frequently takes precedence. This choice enhances realism and reinforces the sense of constant surveillance and structure. Silence is treated as a tool, allowing tension to accumulate without overt signal. The genre blending is particularly effective in how it shapes viewers' expectation. While the historical action labels suggest momentum and spectacle, the film consistently leans toward introspection. This creates a subtitle friction between expectation and execution, which become part of the viewing experience. The genre is not a burden but reinterpreted through a narrow emotional lens. Overall, the mood of this drama is controlled, tense, and deliberately accustomed. It favored atmosphere over scale, patience over speed, and psychological pressure over dramatic release. These choices make the film feel heavier than many entries in its genre, but also more focused. Rather than attempting to overwhelm the audience, it invites sustained attention, rewarding viewers who are willing to engage with its slow tempo and carefully constructed tone. Before watching this drama, audience expectations are shaped less by marketing promises, more by memory, genre, familiarity, and personal viewing habits. This is a project that arrives with historical weight, and viewers approach it carrying assumptions that come from years of exposure to similar material. Understanding those expectations help explain not only how the movie is received but what different segment of the audience are hoping to experience when they press play. From a demographic standpoint, the core audience is likely to be adults who are already comfortable with mature content and slower, more deliberate storytelling. Long time fact of historical dramas, premium cable series, and character focused genre project from the foundation of expected viewership. This group tend to skew toward viewers who value atmosphere, thematic depth, and visual style over constant narrative moments. They are not necessarily looking for surprise but for familiar world presented with enough refinement to feel worth revisiting. There is also a secondary demographic made up of casual genre viewers. These are people drawn in by broader appeal of historical action drama, gladiators, initial settings, and heightened emotions. Even if they are not deeply invested in franchise continuity, their expectations are often more surface level. They anticipate striking visuals, physical intensity, and a clear genre identity. For these viewers, the question is less about innovation and more about whether the production meet a certain baseline of spectacle and seriousness. Audience expectations are also shaped heavily by anticipated themes. Many viewers come into this film expecting a continued exploration of power, hierarchy, and survival within a rigid system. Even without knowing specific detail, the historical setting alone suggests themes of control, ambition, and moral compromise. There is an assumption that the film will not shy away from uncomfortable ideas and that it will treat authority and violence as structural forces rather than simple background environment. Genre face in particular expect a certain tonal consistencies. The Spartacus name carry association with intensity, stylization, and emotional severity. Fan of this genre typically expect a serious tone, limited comic relief, and an environment where action have visible consequence. They are accumatoms, acclimatized to narrative that demand attention rather than passive viewing, and they approach the film prepare for a moment of discomfort rather than escapism. At the same time, expectations vary depending on how familiar viewers are with modern premium television trend. Audience who regularly watch temporary prestige dramas, many anticipate slower pacing, longer scenes, and an emphasis on mood over plot mechanism. For those viewers, patience is the part of the experience. They expect the film to take its time establishing tone and thematic direction, even if that means withholding immediate gratification. By contrast, viewers, though whose expectations are shaped by faster paced action film, may anticipate more frequent peaks in intensity, while they may be still be open to a grounded tone. Their threshold for prolonged tension without release is often lower. This creates an interesting divide in expectation where the same stylistic choice can feel deliberate and thoughtful to one group and restrain or distance to another. Another important expectation relate to production values given by franchise association and the current standard of premium streaming content. Audience generally expect high quality visuals, consistent world building, and technical polish. There is an assumption that costume, set, and sound design will feel cohesive and intentional, even if they are not overtly showy. Viewers are less forgiving of technical inconsistency in this genre because immersion is central to enjoyment. Ultimately, audience expectations for this movie are grounded in familiarity rather than novelty. Many viewers are not approaching the film hoping it will reinvent historical drama. Instead, they want it to justify its existence through focus, atmosphere, and thematic confidence. They expect seriousness, control, and a clear understanding of its genre space. Whether those expectations are met depends largely on the viewer's tolerance for slow burn storytelling and heavy tone. For audience aligned with mature, atmosphere driven genre work, expectations are likely to be cautiously optimistic. For others, the experience may challenge preconceived ideas about what a historical action drama should prioritize. In either case, the expectations themselves reflect a project that invites considered viewing rather than casual consumption, and that alone shape how confidence prepare for it before the first scene even being. It is clearly designed with a specific kind of viewers in mind rather than a broad all ages audience. Its tone, presentation, and stylistic discipline suggest that the creator are not attempting to appeal to casual or family viewers, but instead to a more mature, selective audience that actively seeks certain kind of viewing experience. Understanding the target audience help clarity why the film make the creative choices it does and why it may resonate strongly with some viewers while feeling demanding to others. From an age group perspective, The film is primarily aimed at adult, most likely view age 21 and above. This is not only due to mature visual content, which is common in the genre, but also because of the emotional and thematic weight, only due to mature visual content thematic weight carried by the overall presentation. The pacing, tonal seriousness, and emphasis on atmosphere assume a level of patience and interpretive engagement that younger viewers or those accustomed to fast paced entertainment may not prefer. The film expects its audience to sit with attention rather than be distracted by constant stimulation. In terms of interest, this movie is tailored for viewers who enjoy structured, immersive world rather than light or escapist storytelling. The ideal viewer is something who appreciate historical setting not necessarily for their educational accuracy, but for their ability to reflect human systems such as power, hierarchy, control, and ambition. These viewers are often drawn to content that examine how environments shape behavior, and they tend to value mood, visual language, and tone as much as language or action. The film also strongly targets viewers who enjoy morally complex material rather than presenting ideas in simple or comforting ways. Overall, design suggests an interest in ambiguity and discomfort. Audience who prefer clear moral boundaries or emotionally reassuring narratives may find the experience challenging. In contrast, viewers who are comfortable with tension, ethical uncertainty, and unresolved emotional state are often likely to connect with what the films offer. Genre preferences play a central role in defining the target audience. This movie is made for fan of historical action dramas, particularly those who appreciate a darker, more controlled interpretation of the genre. Viewers who enjoy premium cable or streaming dramas with a serious tone, where atmosphere and consequence matter more than the spectacle, fits squarely within the intended audience. It also depends for those who favor political or psychological dramas, even when those elements are embedded within a physical intense setting. Importantly, this is not a film designed for viewers who prioritize constant momentum or surface level excitement. While it exists with an action oriented genre, its creative priorities lean toward tension, structure, and emotional weight. The target viewers is someone who enjoys slow burn storytelling and understand that restraint can be a deliberate artistic choice rather than a lack of energy. Another key segment of the target audience include long-time genre enthusiasts who value continuity of tone and aesthetic identity. These viewers tend to appreciate projects that respect established visual and thematic language instead of reminding themselves to chase trend. For them, familiarity is not a drawback but a foundation. They are looking for refinement rather than reinvention, depth rather than expansion. At the same time, the film also attracts viewers who enjoy serious adult-oriented dramas regardless of setting. These are people who may watch courtroom dramas, political thriller, or psychological studies and are open to historical context as long as the emotional and thematic work feel grounded. For this group, the initial setting is less important than the disciplined approach to mode and tone. Overall, This is made for an audience that value intensity with purpose. It targets adults who are patient, thoughtful, and drawn to heavy atmosphere and controlled storytelling. It is best suited for viewers who see genre not as a promise of constant excitement, but as a framework for exploring difficult ideas through style and restraint. For those viewers, the film offers an experience that feels intentional, focused, and emotionally demanding rather than borderly entertaining. The emotional experience promised by this is not designed to comfort or uplift in conventional way. Instead, it offers a controlled, weight bearing emotional journey that prioritizes action, unease, and reflection over release. From the outset, the mood signals seriousness and restraint, preparing the viewers for an experience that unfolds slowly and deliberately rather than through sudden emotional peak. The dominant mood is one of pressure. The atmosphere feels dense as if every moment carry an underlying strain that never fully dissipates. This creates a sense of constant alertness for the viewers rather than allowing emotion to swing freely. The film holds them in check, encouraging observation rather than immediate emotional identification. The mood is sober, heavy, and often quietly oppressive, designed to keep the audience emotionally engaged without offering easy relief. Underlying this mood are themes that reinforce emotional complexity, power, control, ambition, and consequence from the emotional backbone of the experience. These themes are not presented as abstract ideas but as emotional forces that shape how the viewers feel while watching. The films invite audience to consider how authority affects behavior and how system rewards certain action while pushing other, and how personal desire can exist in tension with moral cost. These themes generate discomfort by design, promoting viewers to sit with ambiguity rather than seek clear emotional resolution. Another key emotional element is restraint. The film avoids emotional excess even in moments that could easily be hidden. The stylist choice create a distancing effect that is intentional. Instead of telling the audience what to feel, the film allow emotion to emerge organically through tone, environment, and pacing. This can lead to a moral internalized emotional response where viewers process feeling gradually rather than reacting instantly. The intended impact of this approach is a sense of sustained tension rather than catharsis. The emotional arc does not aim to build toward a single release point. Instead, it maintains a steady level of unease that linger even after scenes conclude. This lingering effect is central to the film's emotional promise. Viewers are not expected to leave feeling satisfied in a traditional sense but thoughtful and unsettled. There is also strong emotional emphasis on isolation even in crowded or intense environment. The emotional tone suggests separation and emotional distance. This reinforces the film's exploration of control and hierarchy, where proximity does not equal connection. The viewer is invited to feel this isolation as part of the emotional experience, creating empathy not through warmth but through sheer discomfort. Importantly, the film emotional design respect the audience intelligence. It assumes viewers are willing to engage with difficult emotion without immediate payoff. This makes the experience more demanding but also more rewarding for those who value depth. The emotional response is meant to accumulate slowly with meaning emerging through reflection rather than reaction. The film also promises emotional consistency. There are no abrupt tonal shifts designed to shock or entertain. Instead, the emotional landscape remains stable, reinforces trust in the film's direction. This consistency helps maintain immersion and allow the audience to fully inhabit the mood without distraction. Ultimately, the emotional experience offered by it's one of control intensity. It aimed to leave viewers feeling way down rather than exhilarated, or reflective rather than energized. The intended impact is not emotional escape but emotional engagement with difficult ideas. For viewers open to this kind of experience, the film promises a serious immersive journey that prioritizes atmosphere, theme, and lasting emotional resonance over immediate graduation. The central conflict of this movie is not built around a single external struggle but around a sustained conclusion between moral promises, structural pressure, and personal ambition, rather than framing conflict as a battle that can be won or lost. The film presents it as an ongoing condition, something embedded into the environment and impossibly to fully escape. This makes the conflict less about resolution and more about endurance. At the heart of this tension lies a fundamental moral dilemma: how survival within a corrupt system reshape value over time. The film positions its conflict within a world where power is not neutral and choices are rarely clean. Every decision exists within constraint imposed by hierarchy, expectation, and consequence. The viewer is asked to consider whether morality can remain intact when operating inside a system that rewards manipulation, silence, and strategic clarity. This dilemma does not announce itself loudly, but it underpins nearly every emotional beat. The conflict is intensified by the challenge of agency. Character operate within tightly controlled structure where freedom is limited and authority is unevenly distributed. This creates a persistent tension between attention and outcome. Even when individuals attempt to act according to personal principles, those principles are filtered through a system that is taught them. The film's central conflict emerges from this friction, the gap between what one believes is right and what one is permitted or forced to do. And other conflict involve ambition and its emotional cost. Ambition is not portrayed as inherently heroic but as a survival mechanism shaped by scarcity. The challenge lies in how ambition interacts with responsibility. When advancement requires complexity, the conflict becomes internal as much as external. The films invite the audience to wrestle with whether the ambition can exist without erosion of self or whether success within a broken structure inevitably carries moral debate. Tension is also sustained through the theme of control versus instability. Power structure in the film are presented as rigid yet fragile, requiring constant reinforcement. This creates an atmosphere where control must be actively maintained, often through intimidation, performances, or sacrifice. The conflict arises not from open rebellion but from the quiet threat of collapse of system of identities of loyalties. This kind of tension is slow burning and psychological rather than explosive. Trust play a subtitle but important role in the central conflict. In an environment gone by surveillance and consequence, trust becomes both necessary and dangerous. The challenge is not simply whom to trust but whether trust itself is a liability. This creates an ongoing moral tension where connection and vulnerability are weighed against self preservation. The film does not frame this as a puzzle to be solved but as a condition to be navigated. It reinforces the sense that conflict here is perpetual rather than episodic. The film also explored the tension between order and chaos, while the system deposited are designed to project stability that rely on constant enforcement and suppression. This creates an underlying instability that feeds the central conflict. Order is shown not as peace but as control imbalance. The challenge becomes maintaining appearance while managing the forces that threaten to disrupt it. This dynamic keeps the conflict alive even in moments of apparent calm. Importantly, the central conflict resists simplification. There is no clear moral high ground offered to the audience. Instead, viewers are placed in a position of observation, encouraged to assess action within context rather than through absolute judgment. This ambiguity is intentional by refusing to provide easy answer. The film sustains tension through uncertainty. The conflict exists not only within the world of the film but within the viewer's own moral reasoning. The emotional weight of the conflict is cumulative rather than escalating toward a single confrontation. It builds through repetition and pressure. Each challenge compounds the previous one, reinforcing the sense that escape is unlikely and compromising inevitable. This makes the conflict feel systemic rather than personal, and that distinction is crucial. The struggle is not against a single opposing force but against the logic of the system itself. The central conflict of this drama revolves around what it costs to operate with power rather than resist it. It examines the tension between survival and integrity, control and vulnerability, ambition and consequence. By framing conflict as an ongoing moral condition rather than a series of events, the film creates a sustained sense of unease that defines its identity. The result is a conflict that does not seek resolution but reflection, asking the viewer not unease that defines its identity. The result is a conflict that does not seek resolution but reflection, asking the viewer not who wins but what is lost along the way. It engages with a set of themes that are heavy, layered, and intentional, uncomfortable, rather than offer simple messages or moral lessons. The film explores ideas that unfold gradually, often contraindicating one another. These themes operate on ethical, emotional, and cultural level, shaping the viewing experience as much as the visual style or pacing. What emerges is the thematic landscape focus on power, compromise, and the human cost of survival within a rigid system. One of the most important ethical questions the film explores whether the morality can exist within structure built on exploitation. The world presenting operates through hierarchy and control, where advancement is often tied to participation in system that harms others. The film does not frame this as a theoretical issue but as a practical one. It asks whether ethical priority is possible when refusal itself carry consequence. This question linger without resolution, encouraging viewer to reflect on how morality shifts when choices are limited and outcomes are unequal. Closely connected to this is the theme of complexity. The film examine how individuals become part of harmful system, not always through intent but through adaptation. Complexity is shown as a gradual process rather than a simple decision. This raises ethical question about responsibility. At what point does survival turn into endorsement, and what does silence become participation? The film does not offer a definitive answer, instead, presenting complexity as a spectrum shaped by fear, ambition, and necessity. Emotionally, the film traces arc defined less by transformation and more by erosion rather than following traditional emotional journey that led toward clarity or redemption. The emotional moment here often trend toward narrowing as pressure increases, the emotional space contract. This creates a sense of internal confinement that mirror the external structure of control. Viewers may notice the emotional expression become more restrained over time, reflecting the cost of maintaining comprehension with an oppressive environment. Another central theme involves identity and self construction. The film explores how identity is shaped not by personal values but by rules imposed by system of power. When identity becomes performative, something maintained or survive rather than expression, it creates tension between who one is and who one must appear to be. This theme resonates emotionally by highlighting the fatigue of constant performance and the quiet grief of lost authenticity. Power itself is treated as a cultural topic rather than a simple narrative device. The film examines power as something that must be constantly reinforced, displayed, and defeated. It is shown to be unstable, requiring ongoing surface to sustain. This treatment invites viewers to consider how power functions in real world exploration. Institution where authority is often maintained through ritual, spectacle, and fear. By placing these ideas in a historical framework, the film creates distance that allow for reflection on contemporary system without direct commentary. The theme of control versus autonomy runs through the film. Control is not portrayed solely as physical domination but as psychological conditioning. Expectations, surveillance, and consequence shape behavior as effectively as force. This raises ethical questions about free will and consent within hierarchical system. The film suggests that autonomy is not simply taken away but slowly exchanged for security or advancement, often without a clear moment of loss. Culturally, the film encourages with ideas of masculinity, dominance, and performance. Strength is presenting not as virtue but as currency. Emotional suppression becomes a survival tactic, reinforcing cultural norms that equate control with authority. By highlighting these dynamics, the film invites viewers to question cultural definition of power and success, particularly in environment where vulnerability is treated as weakness. Another important theme is the illusion of stability. System of control are presenting as ordinary on the surface but deeply fragile beneath. This creates an emotional undercurrent of anxiety as stability depends on continuous enforcement. The film explores how fear becomes normalized in such environments, shaping behavior and emotional expression over time. This theme connects ethically and emotionally, emphasizing how prolonged exposure to instability can distort values. Finally, the film addresses the theme of consequence. Action are not isolated, they ripple outward, affecting system and individual beyond their immediate context. This reinforces the idea that ethical decision can't be evaluated in isolation. The emotional weight of consequence accumulate rather than resolve, contributing to the film's heavy tone. Taken together, the theme explored in this movie form a cohesive examination of life within power structure. Through ethical question about complicity, emotional arc defined by constraint, and cultural topic related to authority and identity, the films offer a thematically dense experience. It does not seek to instruct or reassure, but to provoke reflection, leaving viewers to wrestle with discomfort long after the viewing experience ends. The emotional connection formed by these movies built less through attachment and more about immersion, rather than inviting viewers to emotionally align themselves in comforting or familiar way. The film creates connection by placing the audience inside a sustained emotional atmosphere. This connection is subtle, persistent, and often unsettling, relying on mood, thematic resonance, and shared psychological experience rather than overt emotional cues. Mood is the primary gateway through which viewers connect emotionally. The film establishes control heavy emotional climate that rarely lived. This consistency allows the viewers to acclimate to the emotional pressure rather than reach to it in burst. Over time, this procedure, a form of emotional synchronization, the audience being to feel the same restraint, tension, and vigilance that define the film's environment. Connection emerges not from empathy alone, but from endurance, staying present within the mood as it unfolds. The subdued emotional tone encourages viewers to engage inwardly instead of guiding emotional response through music or dramatic emphasis. The films leave space for interpretation. This restraint invites the audience to project their own thoughts and feelings into the experience. As a result, the emotional connection become personal rather than prescribed. Viewers are not told what to feel, they are asked to notice how the atmosphere affects them. Themes play a crucial role in deepening this connection. Ideas such as power, control, moral compromise, and survival resonate because they mirror real world emotional experience even outside the historical context. Many viewers recognize the emotional weight of operating within systems that limit choice, reward, conformity, or demand performance. The film connects emotionally by reflecting these pressure back at the audience in a digital intensified form. One of the strongest emotional bridge between the film and the viewer is the theme of moral tension. The film does not offer emotional reassurance or moral clarity. Instead, it places viewers in a position of uncertainty, encouraging them to wrestle with discomfort. This creates an active emotional experience. Viewers are not passive observers. They are emotionally engaged through evaluation, doubt, and reflection. The lack of clear emotional resolution mirrors real life situations where answers are incomplete or unsatisfying. Viewer experience is further shaped by the film pacing. The slow, deliberate rhythm allow emotion to accumulate gradually instead of immediate emotional reaction. The film posters lingering feeling that grow with time. This slow accumulation strengthen emotional connection between because it mirror how stress and pressure operate in reality. Emotion do not explode, they compress. The audience feel this compression as scenes linger and transition remain understated. Another important aspect of emotional connection is the film use of isolation as an emotional state. Within the moments of intensity, the emotional design emphasizes distance rather than unity. This can feel challenging, but it can also create resonance for viewers who have experienced emotional isolation in hierarchical or competitive environment. The film does not try to soften this feeling, instead it allows isolation to exist as a shared emotional space between viewers and screen. The emotional connection is also strengthened by thematic consistency because the film does not shift tone abruptly. Viewers develop trust in its emotional language. This trust allows deeper engagement. When viewers believe that film will not manipulate their emotion cheaply, they are more willing to invest emotionally even when the experience is uncomfortable. Consistency becomes a form of emotional honesty. Importantly, the film respects the emotional intelligence of its audience. It assumes viewers are capable of holding conflicting emotion at once: interest and discomfort, fascination and unease. This respect fosters connection by treating the audience as participant rather than consumer. Emotional engagement becomes a dialogue rather than a reaction. The emotional experience does not conclude neatly when the film ends. One of its defining quality is the way it lingers. The mood and the theme continue to occupy mental space afterward, promoting reflection rather than release. The lingering effect is a deliberate part of the emotional connection. Viewers may find themselves reconsidering their own responses to authority, compromise, or ambition long after viewing, which extend the emotional bond beyond the screen. Ultimately, this drama connect emotionally by creating a shared psychological environment rather than offering emotional comfort. Through sustained mood, complex theme, and a demanding viewer experience, it invites audience to feel pressure, restraint, and ambiguity alongside it. The connection form is quiet but lasting, rooted in recognition rather than relief, and designed to engage viewers who value emotional depth over emotional ease. The character design in this movie places psychology and function above sympathy rather than constructing character to be like or rooted for. The series present them as product of power structure shaped by pressure, reward, and consequence. Each major character represents a specific archetype, and together they form a control emotional ecosystem rather than a traditional ensemble of heroes and villains. Ashur stand at the center of the series and function as the strategistic archetype. His defining personality traits are calculation, adaptability, and emotional containment. Ashur is portrayed as someone who understands system deeply, not because he believes in them, but because survival require mastery of their rules. As a reviewer, what makes Ashur compelling is not growth in a conventional sense but consistency. His intelligence is situational rather than philosophical, rooted in reading people, anticipating reaction, and expoliating imbalance. He is not driven by loyalty or honor but by awareness. This makes him emotionally distant yet psychologically engaging. The series invites viewers to study Ashur rather than emphasize with him, turning his presence into an exercise in moral observation. Ashur also embodies the unauthority archetype through that authority is always fragile. His personality reflects someone constantly aware that status can be revoked as easily as it is granted. This produces a tension that manifests as vigilance and control rather than confidence. His emotional restraint feels defensive, suggesting a character who survives by never allowing vulnerability to surface. This restraint aligns closely with the show's overall mood of compression and pressure. Lucretia, returning In thematic influence and tonal legacy, represent the manipulator aristocrat archetype. Even when not physically dominant, her presence symbolizes how power can operate through image, performance, and psychological leverage. Her defining traits are elegance, clarity, mask as refinement, and emotional intelligence used as a weapon. As a reviewer, Lucretia value lies in how she reframed power as culture rather than physical. She represents a system where control is exerted without empathy can be just as destructive as violence. Factitious, whether directly present or echo through institutional memory, function as the ambition driven authority architect. His personality trait, grandiosity, insecurity, and informative dominance serve as a blueprint for how leadership operates within exploitative system. He represents the loud version of power, contrasting Ashur's quieter manipulation. From a critical standpoint, Spartacus is less about individuality and more about what happens when ego becomes institutionalized. His presence reinforces the cultural theme that authority often disguises fear as confidence. Among the newer figure, Achilles is defined by physical discipline, emotional suppression, and conditioned obedience. His personality is shaped by reputation and expectation rather than personal desire. He represents how identity can be reduced to function within rigid hierarchies. As a reviewer, Achilles stand out not for depth of dialogue but for what his silence communicate. He embodies the emotional cost of being valued only for performance. It reinforces the show's theme of human treated as assist. Helena, a sporting but emotionally resonant figure, reflect the observer's survivor archetype. Her redefining trait include caution, emotional awareness, and moral hesitation. Unlike Ashur, Helena does not fully suppress emotional response, which places her in constant tension with the environment. From a reviewer's perspective, Helena provides contrast rather than opposition. He reminds the audience of the emotional consequence that the system produces without offering resolution or escape. Her presence adds emotional texture by showing what restraint cost internally. Together, these characters are not designed to balance each other morally, but to reinforce a sheer ecosystem of compromise. No single character exists in isolation. Each personality reflects a different method of navigating control. What stands out critically in the absence of traditional heroic framing, each character with intelligence or strength are depicted as constrained, reactive, and shaped by necessity rather than idealism. From a reviewer's standpoint, the strength of this movie lies in its refusal to soften its character for accessibility. Archetypes are used not to simplify but to clarify function. Personality traits are not exaggerated for drama but compressed to reflect survival within rigid system. The result is a cast that feel intentionally uncomfortable to engage with yet consistently coherent. Rather than asking viewer to choose ideas, the series asks them to observe behavior under pressure. The characters do not evolve toward freedom, they adopt toward endurance. That choice defines the series' identity and make its character work one of its most intellectually engaging element. The acting performance in this drama are defined by control rather than display. Emotion is not delivered through dramatic outbursts or overt expressiveness, but through restrained precision and sustained intensity. As a viewing experience, the performance asks the audience to lean it, to read silence and subtitle shift, and to feel emotion accumulating rather than erupting. At the center of the series is E.Tarabay, whose work anchored the emotional tone. His performance is built on tight internalization rather than signaling emotion openly. E.Tarabay allow it to sit beneath the surface, creating a constant sense of calculation and alertness. What makes his performance emotionally effective is how little he gives away. Every pauses, glance, and control reaction feel deliberate. This creates an emotional tension where the audience is always aware that thought and intention are active even when nothing is being said. It's a performance that demands patience but to reward attention. Teraby's strength lies in its ability to communicate pressure without exaggeration. Emotion is conveyed through posture, stillness, and timing rather than vocal intensity. This aligns closely with the series' overall mood of compression and restraint. As a lead performance. It set the emotional rule for the entire cast. Others do not outshine or contradict his tone. Instead, they operate with the same emotional language. The supporting cast play a critical role in reinforcing this atmosphere rather than competing for emotional dominance. The ensemble function not as a network of contrasting energies. Each sporting performance introduces a slightly different emotional temperature, which help prevent the series from becoming emotionally flat despite its controlled tone. Some performances lean toward cold authority, other towards suppressed anxiety, and other toward quiet observation. Together, they create a layered emotional environment rather than hierarchy of standout moments. Lucy Lawless, whose presence carries significant emotional weight due to her association with the franchise, brings a distinctly different kind of intensity. Her performance style is sharper, more outwardly expressive, yet still controlled. Emotion in her work often arrive through vocal modulation and deliberate emphasis rather than physical movement. This pushes outward, creating tension through contrast rather than conflict. The chemistry between the lead and the supporting cast is not built on warmth or familiarity but on fiction. Interaction feels charged even when calm. This is an important emotional choice. The series avoid comfortable rapport, opting instead of charge even when calm. Instead, for relationship defined by awareness and intuition, the chemistry emerges from mutual recognition rather than affection. Viewers sense that characters are constantly mirroring one another and that emotional exposure carries risk. What stands out emotionally is how consistently the cast respect the show restraint. There are no performance that collective discipline strengthen the emotional experience because it creates trust. The audience learn that emotion will not be handled to them easily but that it will be honest when it arrives. Another notable aspect of the performance is how emotion is often expressed indirectly. Anger appear as composure, fear appear as precision, confidence appear as stillness. This inversion challenges viewers to adjust their emotional expectation rather than reacting intensively. The audience is encouraged to interrupt. This interrupting engagement deepen emotional connection, especially for viewers who appreciate subtitle performance work. The ensemble chemistry also benefit from pacing because scenes are allowed to breathe. Actors have space to let emotions settle rather than rush toward emphasis. This make interaction feel alive and credible. Emotional tension is sustained across scenes rather than resolved within them, allowing performance to resonate beyond their immediate moments. Overall, the acting in this drama is emotional and discipline over spectacle. Lead and supporting performances work in harmony to maintain a consistent psychological pressure. Chemistry is built on restraint, awareness, and ease rather than connection or comfort. For viewer attuned to subtly, the performance offer a deeply immersive emotional experience, one that trusts silence as much as speech and restraint as much as intensity. One of the most notable strengths of this drama line how it balances heightened style with a grounded sense of realism, particularly in its approach to character depth. While the world it presents is visually intense and emotionally compressed, the character within it behave in ways that feel internally consistent and psychologically believable. This realism does not come from historical accuracy alone, but from how human responses are portrayed under sustained pressure. Character development in the series is gradual rather than dramatic. Instead of sudden transformation, personalities evolve through small adjustment, changes in restraint, posture, and decision, making them reflect accumulated experience. This approach mirrors real life adaptation more closely than traditional character arc. People rarely change overnight, they narrow, harden, or refine themselves in response to their environment. The series captures this process with patience, allowing development to feel earned rather than imposed. Believability is reinforced by how characters respond to power and limitation. Action feel motivated by survival status and fear rather than convenience. Even morally questionable behavior is framed as a rational response to systemic pressure, which make it easier for viewer to understand, if not agree with the choices being made. This grounding prevent character from simpling into caricature. They feel like individuals shaped by context rather than symbol performing for the audience. Emotional range is handled with restraint, which paradoxically increases its impact. Instead of wide emotional swing, the series emphasizes compressed emotion, anger held in check, fear masked as comprehension, ambition expressed through silence. This limited range is not a flaw but a reflection of the world the character inhabited. Emotional expression becomes a liability, so character adopt by internalizing rather than realizing. When emotion is surface, it feels significant precisely because it has been withheld. The realism of this approach lies in its honesty. People under constant scrutiny and risk often learn to regulate themselves tightly. The series understands this and builds its character depth around that reality rather than asking viewer to connect through overt emotion. He invite them to recognize familiar psychological patterns, self-control, rationalization, and quiet compromise. Overall, this achieve depth by trusting subtly. Character development unfold through pressure. Believability emerges from consistent motivation, and emotional range is shaped by environment rather than performance. The result is a portrait of human behavior that feel grounded, controlled, and emotionally credible within the intense world the series construct. The production budget of This movie plays and drama places it firmly with the category of premium historical drama rather than large scale blockbuster cinema. Although no official figure have been publicly confirmed, industry comparison and production requirement allow for grounded estimate based on similar series produced for premium cable and streaming platform. The overall budget is reasonably assessed within a range of approximately 80 to 150 million dollars for a full season. This range reflects both visual demand of the genre and the standard expected from a well established franchise. Historical drama inherently require higher budget than contemporary set production. A significant portion of the cost is allocated to physical production. Set must be constructed or heavily modified to reflect ancient environment as modern location can't easily double for historical setting without extensive work. Large interior build control, exterior location, and long term set maintenance contribute substantially to expense even when filming takes place in region offering tax incentive. Such savings are often offset by logistical costs related to transportation, accommodation, and extended shoot schedule. Costume and prop design count for another major share of the budget. Period appropriate clothing, armor, weapon, and decorative element must be custom made rather than sourced. These items also need to be durable enough to withstand repeated use, particularly in physically demanding scene. Unlike contemporary production where wardrobe cost can't be controlled through reuse and adaptation, historical dramas require near total fabrication, increasing both material and labor expenses. Cast and crew compensation form one of the largest budget categories. This includes salaries for lead and supporting actor, director, producer, writer, stunt performer, and sizable technical crew. Action oriented historical projects require additional specialists such as fight coordinators, safety teams, and stunt unit, all of which increase overall labor cost. Because the production relies on experienced professional familiar within the genre, compensation reflect established industry rate rather than emerging talent budget. Post production is another significant area of expenditure. Editing, sound design, music scoring, color grading, and visual effects are essential to maintaining consistency in scale. While House of Ashur does not rely as heavily on large scale digital environment as fantasy or science fiction series, visual effects are still used to enhance setting, expand crowd scenes, and refine action sequence. These costs, while control, are ongoing across multiple episodes and accumulate quickly. When compared to similar film and series, the budget positioning become clear. Large theatrical historical epics often exceed $100 million for a single release, with cost concentrated into a 2 to 3 hour runtime. By contrast, premium television spreads its budget across multiple episodes, prioritizing sustained quality rather than singular spectacle, compared to high fantasy series that can exceed $2 million per season. This drama operates at a more restrained level, focusing on physical realism and atmosphere rather than extensive digital world building within the broader television landscape. This budget places the project well above standard drama series and comfortably within the premium tier. The allocation suggests a production strategy centered on durability and consistency rather than excess. Resources appear directed toward maintaining visual credibility, control, action, atmospheric depth across the entire season. Overall, the production budget reflects a calculated balance between ambition and restraint. It supports the demand of a historical action drama without pushing into the highest cost bracket of modern television. This approach aligns with the project's creative goal, emphasizing sustained immersion and production reliability rather than short-term spectacle. Because this drama is positioned as a premium franchise continuation rather than a traditional wide theatrical release, its dramatic performance need to be discussed differently from standard cinema box office figure. In the conventional sense, domestic box office refer to ticket sale within the primary release region, usually the United States and Canada. For this title, the focus shifts from ticket revenue to audience reach, market response, and comparative performance within its distribution category. In the domestic market, project tied to establish historical action franchise tend to benefit from strong brand recognition. The Spartacus name already carry weight among adult viewers who are familiar with high intensity, mature theme production. The pre-existing awareness often translates into immediate domestic interest even without a traditional theatrical rollout. Instead of opening weekend numbers, success is reflected in sustained engagement, platform visibility, and audience retention within the region. Audience trend in the domestic market show that viewers of historical epics and gladiator era dramas skew toward an older demographic, generally adult, who favor intense themes, stylized violence, and morally complex storytelling. This audience is smaller than mass market blockbuster crowd but typically more loyal. As a result, domestic performance is less about explosive initial number and more about steady consumption over time. This pattern aligns closely with other mature franchise continuation that prioritize depth and tone over broad family appeal. When compared to similar film or franchise extension in the same genre, House of Ashur operate in a different economic lane than large-scale theatrical spectacle. Big budget historical film release in cinema often rely on massive domestic turnout to justify costs, sometimes generating hundreds of millions in ticket sales. In contrast, franchise based production like this are evaluated against comparable premium title with controlled budget and targeted audience. Their domestic success is measured through consistency rather than dominance. Another important factor is competition within the domestic landscape. The market for adult oriented historical action is not overcrowded, which allow titles like House of Ashur to stand out more clearly rather than competing with family oriented franchise or mainstream superhero film. It occupies a narrower but more focused space. The positioning often lead to stronger engagement per viewers even if overall audience size is more limited. In summary, the domestic box office discussion for Spartacus House of Ashur is best understood in contextual terms rather than raw revenue figure. Its domestic performance reflects audience loyalty, franchise recognition, and sustained interest within a specific demographic rather than traditional ticket sale milestone. When examining this drama in the context of international box office, it is important to frame the discussion around how this type of franchise extension is typically distributed and monetized outside of the domestic theatrical model. Unlike traditional film release widely in cinema around the world, this project functions primarily as a premium content property with international viewership tied to licensing, regional broadcast deal and platform availability. However, it is still possible to analyze how the title platform in international market through measurable audience engagement, market reception, and the impact of emotional strategies across major regions: Europe, Latin America, Asian Pacific, and the Middle East. Africa, historical action dramas often find receptive audience due to broad culture, interesting period storytelling, and visual spectacle in territories where original Spartacus series built a following through syndicated broadcast and streaming house for sure benefit from pre-existing awareness. This recognition tend to drive higher initial engagement compared to unrelated new titles, especially among adult viewers who prioritize mature dramatic content. Market reception internationally varies by region, shaped by local appetite for genre and cultural proximity to historical narrative. In Western Europe, where premium cable dramas have strong foothold, engagement rates are generally solid. Audience in this region responded favorably to controlled atmospheric production that emphasize visual craft and trend, with the segment of viewers appreciating serialized historical drama as counter programming to mainstream commercial flair. In Asia, specific reception can be more heterogeneous. Certain territories that favor high production serialized content, such as South Korea, Japan, and part of Southeast Asia, show measurable interest, particularly among niche adult viewing segments. However, broad theatrical attendance in these markets tend to favor locally produced film or global blockbuster title with cross demographic appeal, which plays a title like House of Ashur is a more specialized category. Marketing impact play a significant role in international performance. Promotional campaigns that emphasize the franchise legacy, brand identity, its visual tone, stylistic consistency, and genre positioning help establish expectation in market where awareness is uneven. Strategic regional marketing, especially through digital platform and streaming previews, tend to increase engagement more effectively than traditional cinema advertising, further blurring the line between theatrical and platform success. Without conventional box office reporting, international performance is best understood through how the project drive engagement cross region and how regional audience taste align with its thematic and stylistic identity, and how marketing shape perception and anticipation. In this context, the title reception reflects steady interest in mature historical drama rather than blockbuster level international drawn. When discussing worldwide gross and even break for Spartacus, House of Ashur 2025, it is important to move away from the traditional theatrical box office framework and instead consider a broader multi-stream revenue model. Unlike wide release cinema films that rely heavily on ticket sale across global market, this title operate within a premium distribution ecosystem where worldwide performance is measured through aggregated audience reach and long-term monetization rather than a single gross figure. From a global audience perspective, the franchise benefit from established recognition across multiple regions, particularly North America, Europe, and part of Latin America. This existing awareness reduces the risk typically associated with launching new intellectual property and allow the project to tap into a dispersed but loyal international audience rather than generating revenue through cinema tenders. Worldwide earnings are accumulated through subscription driven consumption, regional licensing agreement, and international broadcast deal. Each territory contribute incrementally, performing a cumulative global return over time rather than a concentrated opening period surge. Revenue stream for the production of this nature are layered. Primary income is generated through domestic and international platform subscription, where exclusive earlier access content encourages both new sign up and retention. Secondary revenue comes from international licensing, where regional distributors pay fixed fee to carry the series within their market. Additional stream may include physical media sale in select region, digital rental, and long tail monetization through future syndication or bundle franchise offering. While none of these individually match the explosive potential of a theoretical worldwide growth, together they create a stable and predictable revenue structure. Break even analysis therefore focuses on cost recovery across these channels rather than box office milestone. Production costing, including set construction, visual effect costs, salaries, and post production, are offset gradually as revenue accumulate across territory. Distribution costs are also structured differently. Instead of global theatrical marketing campaigns and print distribution expenses, costs are concentrated in targeting regional promotion, platform integration, and localization. These expenses are typically lower per territory than theatrical release, which lower the break even threshold. As a result, the break even point for the drama is likely reached through sustained global engagement rather than rapid worldwide earning. Success is defined by long term performance, audience consistency, and franchise durability rather than headline grabbing across figures. This model prioritizes stability over spectacle, making worldwide financial performance is less visible but more resilient over time. Evaluating the profitability of the drama require a different lens than, than the one typically applied to wide theatrical release. Profitability here is not determined by opening weekend number or headline worldwide grosses, but by how effectively total revenue stream outweigh production and distribution cost over time. From a revenue versus cost perspective, the project benefit from control financial planning. The production budget, while substantial due to period setting, stylized visual, and experienced cast and crew, is calibrated for a premium franchise extension rather than a mass market blockbuster. It This means the cost base is high enough to maintain quality franchise extension rather than a mass market blockbuster. This means the cost base is high enough to maintain quality and brand consistency, but not so inflected that it demand extraordinary return to break even. Because the idea does not rely on theoretical distribution, it avoids large expenses associated with global cinema market and physical distribution, which significantly reduce overall financial risk. Ancillary income play a major role in pushing the project into profitability. Beyond primary revenue generated through domestic and international platform distribution, the franchise model allows for multiple secondary income challenge. These include long-term licensing deal in overseas market, future rebroadcast right, digital ownership format, and bundle franchise opening that repackage earlier Spartacus content alongside the new title. Merchandise, while not the core revenue driven, or odds incremental value, particularly among dedicated fans of the franchise visual identity. Return on investment is best understood as gradual rather than immediate. Instead of a short revenue window, House of Ashur is designed to generate return across an extended life cycle. Each new viewer contribute marginal revenue at a relatively low incremental cost, especially once production expenses are already absorbed. This creates a compounding effect where profitability improves steadily as the content continue to attract audience long after its initial release profit. Importantly, the established brand reduce marketing inefficiency because awareness already exists. Promotional spending can be more targeting, improving ROI compared to launching an entirely new property. Even moderate audience engagement can therefore produce favorable financial outcome when measured against the total investment. In analytical terms, while this drama may not deliver the explosive profit associated with its theatrical blockbuster, its revenue structure, ancillary income potential, and control cost profile strongly support the conclusion that it operates within a profitable model. Its success lies in sustainable return rather than immediate spectacle. Journal audience reaction of this drama reflect a clear alignment between the project creative direction and the expectation of a specific viewer base rather than aiming for universal appeal. The response suggests that the title resonates most strongly with audience who are already familiar with mature historically styled action dramas. This targeted reception shape how the series is discussed, shared, and engaged with across different demographic groups. From a demographic perspective, the strongest reaction comes from adult viewers, particularly those in the mid 20s to mid 40 age range. This group tend to value intense atmosphere, discipline, pacing, and morally complex material. Younger audience, especially those acclimatized to fast moving, high spectral content, appear more divided in their reactions. Some appreciate the stylized presentation and serious tone, while others find the approach demanding or less immediately gratifying. Other viewers, particularly those with prior exposure to similar genre content, often respond more favorably, citing familiarity and consistency as strength. Viewers' feedback frequently centered as tone and presentation rather than spectacle. Many audience response highlight the deliberate pacing and control visual style as distinguishing feature. For some, this restraint is seen as a mark of confidence, allowing the material to breathe and develop its thematic weight. Others describe the same qualities as challenging, noting that the experience required patience and focused attention. This divide underscore how audience reaction is shaped as much by viewing habit as by content quality. Engagement pattern further illustrate this dynamic rather than generating explosive short-lived bows. The title appear to encourage sustained discussion over time. Viewers who connect with its approach are more likely to engage deeply, sharing thoughtful reaction, returning for continued viewing. This type of engagement is often quieter but more durable, suggesting a committed audience rather than a fleeting one. Social discussion trend tend to emphasize atmosphere, visual identity, and thematic seriousness rather than isolated movement. And other most important notable aspect of audience reaction is appreciation for production discipline, and many viewers respond positively to the sense of intentionality behind the project, noting that it does not attempt to broaden its appeal by softening its tone. This authenticity strengthens trust among genre enthusiasts even if it limit mass appeal. Conversely, viewers unfamiliar with this style sometimes express franchise at the intensity and focus, indicating a mismatch between expectation and experience rather than outright rejection. Cultural context also influence reaction in region where premium historical dramas are well established. Audience feedback tend to be more receptive and nuanced. In market dominated by lighter or faster paced entertainment, responses are more mixed, reflecting different viewing norms and preferences. Overall, the most important, the audience reaction. Basically, the audience reaction of Spartacus 2025 drama suggests a project that succeeds on its own term. Engagement is strongest among viewers who value mood driven storytelling and disciplined presentation. While it may not generate universal enthusiasm, the depth and consistency of its audience response point to meaningful connection rather than superficial popularity. Box office performance, even when discussed in non traditional terms, play a significant role in shaping how this drama is perceived by audience, critics, and the industry. While the project does not rely on conventional theatrical cross, its financial performance still influences reputation, credibility, and long-term value with its genre space. From the standpoint of critical reception, financial stability often reinforces confidence in creative choices. When a project demonstrates strong market traction, whether through sustained viewership, platform engagement, or international licensing, it tends to be viewed as a validative creative risk. Critics are more likely to interpret stylistic restraint and tonal seriousness as international rather than limiting when the production appear financially secure. Conversely, weaker performance can shift the narrative, framing the same qualities as niche or inaccessible. In this way, economic result subtly shape critical framing even when view reviews focus on artistic merit. Studio reputation is also closely tied to perceived financial outcome. For a studio network associated with premium historical dramas, consistent performance strengthens its brand identity as a reliable curator of mature, high quality genre content. A successful run signal to audience and industry pattern that the studio understands its market and can sustain long term even in the absence of blockbuster style headline. Genre comparison further highlight the impact of box office perception. With the historical action and mature drama category, projects are often measured against each other not by absolute revenue but by efficiency and longevity. A little a title that maintains steady engagement over time is frequently perceived as more successful than one that peaks earlier and fades quickly. This comparison favors production that prioritize control budget and focus audience, reinforcing the idea that success in its genre is about endurance rather than spectacle. Audience perception is also shaped by financial narratives. Viewers often associate strong performance with quality and relevance, even subconsciously. When a project is seen as commercially viable, it gains cultural legitimacy, encouraging hesitate viewers to engage. On the other hand, underperformance can discourage exploration, regardless of actual content quality. Box office and financial performance both influence perception beyond number. They affect how critics frame their analysis and how studios are judged by strategic vision and how the agenda itself is evaluated. And for this drama, stable performance enhances its standing as a credible, intentional addition to mature historical drama rather than risky outlier. From a reviewer perspective, the drama stands as a carefully constructed addition to the historical action genre, defined more by intention than by excess. Its thematic quality is rooted in control. The visual language feels deliberate, favoring composition, texture, and atmosphere over constant movement. This approach gives the project a sense of weight and seriousness, signaling that it is meant to be absorbed rather than consumed casually. While this restraint may challenge some viewers, it is also established a strong identity that separates it from more formula driven genre entries. In terms of production value, the project demonstrates discipline, craftsmanship. The scale is convincing without feeling inflected, suggesting a budget that was used thoughtfully rather than extravagantly. Design choice from environment to overall visual tone feel cohesive and purposeful. Nothing appear rushed or careless, and this consistency support immersion. That said, the control scale can occasionally limit spectacle, which may disappoint viewers expecting continuous visual escalation. The production prioritizes sustainability and coherence over constant escalation, a choice that will divide opinion but remain internally consistent. Performance contributes significantly to the overall impact. The acting style across the board lean toward intensity and restraint rather than overt emotional display. This work well within the film's tonal framework, reinforces themes of control, power, and survival. The strongest performance convey depth through minimalism. Subtitle shift in expression and physical presence carry more weight than dialogue heavy moments. However, this same restraint may feel emotionally distant for viewers who prefer more expressive character work, making connection a slower, more demanding process. Thematically, the project is confident and uncompromising. It engages with ideas of power, loyalty, and more compromise without offering easy answers. These themes are woven into the fabric of the production rather than presenting as overt messages which add sophistication but require active viewer engagement. That lack of thematic hand holding is a strength for genre enthusiasts, though, though it may reduce accessibility for broader audience. Overall, this drama is strongest when viewed as a focused, mature genre piece rather than a mass appeal spectacle. Its strength lies in atmosphere, consistency, and thematic seriousness. Its weakness stem from the same qualities. Restraint, pacing, and emotional distance may limit its reach. For viewers aligning with their sensibilities, it is the same qualities. Restraint, pacing, emotional distance may limit its reach. For viewers aligning with their sensibilities, it offers a rewarding and confident experience. For others, it may feel demanding. This drama is best suited for viewers who are comfortable with intense, mature genre material and who appreciate a more deliberate style of storytelling. Adult audience, particularly those in the 21 plus age group, are likely to respond most positively. These include viewers who enjoy historically inspired action dramas, morally complex theme, and a serious emotional tone. If you are drawn to projects that emphasize atmosphere, discipline, and thematic weight over constant spectacle, this title aligns well with your preferences. Fans of darker, adult oriented genre work will likely find the emotional resonance satisfying. This experience is designed to provoke reflection rather than deliver immediate gratification, making it ideal for viewers who enjoy engaging with content on a psychological and thematic level. Those who value restrained performance, control, pacing, and a cohesive visual identity will appreciate the project confident in its own style. It also suits who prefer narrative that trust the audience to interpret meaning without excessive explanation.